Usually the things that stick around for most of our lives are the things that we get scared of as a child. Every now and then we watch movies and TV shows that we find amusement and pleasure from. We get various emotions from different experiences, of course, but sometimes we come across things that is so terrifying and distressing to us as kids, it could potentially leave a huge effect on ourselves of what's to come in life. And the shit that we used to watch as once very vulnerable but innocent little children is no exception. Now, I was inspired to make this video by Adam from the YouTube channel Your Movie Sucks, who made a series of videos where he talked about parts of movies and TV shows that scared him as a kid. As well as that, he got a bunch of other YouTubers such as I Hate Everything, Ralph the Movie Maker, The Odd Ones Out, and a whole bunch more to discuss their own childhood traumas. Now, he didn't ask me to make this, but I wanted to because I simply found the topic quite interesting. Now, we all get scared of we all get scared of kids.
We all get scared of a lot of things as kids. It's natural and it's a common foundation that happens to all of us.
Everybody has that one or maybe numerous things from different types of mediums that frightened them and left a harsh effect on them as kids. Now, to be honest, it's kind of intriguing to listen to other people's repressed childhood memories, and it could potentially recall other people's memories as kids. Now, as I was thinking about doing this video, I was trying to remember any movies or TV shows or whatever that I used to watch as a kid. I mean, like any repressed memories, they were so old and I eventually forgot about them as I got older. But there are a couple that slipped through the cracks in my consciousness, and one of the things that really petrified me as a kid by memory
Was SpongeBob SquarePants.
Okay, maybe not. In fact, I absolutely loved SpongeBob as a kid, and even as a mature adult, I can still kind of appreciate the creativity and clever surrealistic nature that the show had to offer during its earlier seasons. Looking back at the show, I forgot how funny and clever the show was at times. As I watched the show on a couple of occasions as an adult, I actually found myself chuckling and reminiscing my enjoyment I had for them as a kid. There was certainly a lot of stuff that flew over my mind as a kid, which shows that even adults can get some enjoyment out of. But going back to childhood traumas, there was one episode of SpongeBob that did make me shit my pants when I was about the innocent age of 5 years old, called Wormy. So the premise is that SpongeBob and Patrick has been given the task by Sandy to take care of a pet worm, Wormy, while she leaves town. SpongeBob and Patrick get attached to the worm until the next day when they arrive back to Sandy's house and discover that Wormy has turned into a butterfly overnight.
But because SpongeBob and Patrick are completely delusional, they assume that the butterfly ate the worm. And what follows is imagery that would absolutely terrify me as a kid.
This to me was frightening as fuck. I think not only because of that creepy and off-putting imagery of that micro shot of that butterfly, but it was when SpongeBob and Patrick screamed and misinterpreted it for a flesh-thirsting monster made me scared in terror. I remember every time that episode would air on TV, I would cover my eyes at every time as I expect the creepy butterfly imagery would come on the screen. I would think to myself, don't look, don't look! And during the course of the episode, SpongeBob and Patrick would often scream and talk in a dreaded tone, which to me as a dumb 5-year-old at the time, somehow conveyed a message of fear and agony of some sort.
That's the monster?
Pretty scary, huh?
A living nightmare!
No, just 'cause you swabs never seen a creature like this doesn't mean it's dangerous.
We tried to warn them. I can't watch!
I mean, people would usually give the impression of butterflies as being sweet little insects, but when you see them up close, that's some freaky shit. Another thing that made me terrifying for me as a 5-year-old is the fact that it juxtaposes from a sweet innocent cartoon that I was pretty used to as a kid to a frightening live-action micro shot of the butterfly. Now, part of what makes SpongeBob's surrealistic nature kind of interesting to a lot of people is the occasional blend of live-action segments with the animation. And as a kid growing up watching the show, I can kind of recall my reaction to those moments as being kind of odd and really out of place. But the fact that it was part of the absurdist and bizarre nature of the show didn't really catch on to me as a kid, so every time something like that would occur, it would kind of put me off as a bit weird. So during the episode, they try to inform everyone in Bikini Bottom that there is a dangerous, terrifying creature out to eat everyone, which causes everybody in town to be terrified. So as the town is partially destroyed, Sandy comes home and puts this chaos to a halt as she puts little Wormy into a jar, and oh look, the day is saved, yay! Now, keep in mind I was probably around 5 or 6 years old when I first saw this, so I really wouldn't blame my 5-year-old self for getting scared of this. But this isn't the only thing I wanted to talk about in this video. There was one other thing that really gave me the shits. One thing that was even more terrifying than seeing a micro shot of a butterfly, and that was from a TV show called Round the Twist. Now, you've probably never heard of this show, so I'll just explain. The Round the Twist was a fantasy sort of children's show from Australia, which was based on a series of books by children's author Paul Jennings, who would write a series of books which included short stories that would have an unusual surreal premise with a twist ending. In fact, a lot of the stories that were originally written for Paul Jennings' books were later adapted into episodes of the show. I used to really love reading these books as a kid back then simply because of the really weird, bizarre, and surrealism of the books and TV shows, hence why I really enjoyed Round the Twist as a kid. And I remember we used to watch Round the Twist in primary school. I think we watched it because we had to do worksheets on it, as well as that if it was the last day of the school year, the teacher would probably put it on as like a treat or some shit, I don't know. But regardless, I enjoyed it for what it was, but that doesn't mean it didn't make me feel uncomfortable every now and then. And that's no exception with one particular episode called Pink Bow Tie. If there were any repressed childhood memories that really haunted me, this would have to be one that I would think of at the top of my head. How scary is it, you might ask? Well, I'm going to take an in-depth look into this episode and show you guys exactly what terrified me as a young little boy. So it begins with two thieves breaking into what appears to be some sort of school chemistry lab or some shit to find a safe in which contains a bag of cash and a device which is established later on to be an aging device which can rapidly turn anyone older or younger just by touching it. It then cuts to one morning where we see one of the main characters of the show, Pete,
getting ready for school with an unusual mohawk on his head.
What's going on here?
Where?
Here.
Oh, here?
Yes.
Here.
This way.
So the boys get sent to the principal's office for their hair, and this doesn't really make any sense to me. I mean, I understand why these guys are gonna get in trouble, but what about this kid? His hair seems fine. I mean, is that worth getting in trouble over at this school? Having a crew cut?
We'll all just stick to the same story, okay?
It's not as if it's anyone's fault.
Right. We take the blame together. Okay, Grips?
Absolutely. Definitely.
Without a doubt.
Whose idea was this?
His.
So Pete explains the whole story on why they got their hair straight in the first place. In this flashback we see Pete and other school kids getting back home on a ferry from a sports carnival. Now I know what you're thinking, dude, this isn't scary. Just hold on there, we're not quite there yet. As the ferry begins to sail off, the two thieves from earlier try to outrun the police with the stolen device.
See you around, Growler.
And I may as well mention this weird running gag in the episode where these bully archetypes do this weird thing that apparently causes seasickness when on water.
And another way of preventing seasickness is, of course, to stare at a
When I was looking back on this, I was just thinking to myself, why don't these people, oh I don't know, not look at them? Oh look, he threw up over the boat! But granted, this gag, if you would call it, does have a payoff.
Ah, the old seasick swang trick, eh? Well, I'll fix you.
I think I'm gonna be sick, Grips.
Me too.
We then see Pete following one of the thieves into the toilets.
He then uses the device to turn himself into a young teenage boy roughly the same age as Pete.
What are you looking at? Nothing.
Hand over those clothes.
Get real?
Give me those clothes.
Over my dead body.
That can be arranged.
And we also find out that the device turned him into a terrible child actor. Actually, come to think of it, nearly all the fucking acting is really poor in this.
Don't talk to me like that, dropkick. Hand over that bag.
Get lost, shrimp.
Ooh, shrimp, eh?
Yeah, shrimp.
Get him.
Maybe it could have been the director or the actors, just bad on their own. But look, it's a kid's show, am I right? Why even fucking try? As one of the thieves wander around the ferry, he assumes that Pete is the thief that turned into the young teenager.
The perfect cover, eh? No one will know it was you. Except me. Where's the money?
I didn't take it. Must have been that other kid. He took my clothes as well.
Let's go.
The tide comes into the bay, forcing the... Excuse me, lad. Tuck your shirt in. Sit down. Pay attention.
Sir, can I please go to the toilet?
Yes, of course you can go to the toilet.
I'm desperate.
Yes, of course you are.
Alright, this has to be one of the worst schools out there. You seriously cannot tell if that kid isn't a student at the school? And you're not going by the uniform he's wearing? Surely you wouldn't recognize that kid? Wouldn't you have suspicions about him, like how did he get on the ferry? What kind of roll call system do you have going on? And to give you an idea of how low these kids' common senses are, in what I think are one of the unintentionally funnier moments in the episode, is where the girls are confronted with Pete and one of the thieves.
Well?
Not here. Not unless he's had a sex change.
Nah, can't do that.
Rachel, she was good.
I think.
Oh, love the outfit, Pete. Very nice.
We'd love to stay and chat, ladies, but...
They don't question a fucking thing about Pete hanging around a man in a black beanie and leather jacket who looks like he's up to trouble. Anyway, the kid then uses the device to turn himself back into an adult, but not before Pete leads the other thief to him and, well, this happens.
Leave it alone! You make us younger!
Now, I can't quite remember my reaction to this as a kid when I first saw this, but I think it went something on the lines of, "What the fuck is this?" I know looking back at this now, they were just playing this off for humor, but it was quite off-putting for me as a kid. I just found it quite weird and all that. I don't know why, I probably just had different tastes for TV shows back then. Although my taste for TV shows over the years have been kind of weird, so to speak. Now again, you're probably saying, "Mate, how the hell is this scary? What are you talking about?" Okay, we're just about here, folks. So Pete and his bully see the thieves, now turned into little kids, fight over the device, and here we go, guys. This was the part that really terrified me as a little 9-year-old.
Don't do
Turn into dust, right in front of us.
Honest, sir. That's how we got like this.
Okay, this is gonna be difficult to explain, but hear me out. So here we see the two thieves aging rapidly while fighting for the device. They're aging until we see them as two old frail men, and then they turn completely into dust. Pete and his peers see this play out right before their own eyes. It didn't help that their scream predicated my horrified reaction, but the dramatic music also played a big part in conveying an unsettling tone which implemented my horrifying reaction from myself. When I saw this episode for the first time, I didn't scream, but I rather just sat there still, silent and kind of oppressed, if you would say. And I remember that particular scene alone made me quite numb when I watched the rest of the episode, and for the rest of that day I felt uncomfortable and numb. This scene in particular surely left an impact on me. As a kid I had nightmares of this one scene, like I imagined myself in Pete's shoes watching this scene unfold, witnessing two hopeless old men dying right in front of me.
Which would be a really terrifying ordeal for a 9-year-old, or 10, or however old I was back then.
All sorts of thoughts and questions went through my head, like, these men had so much to live for, and it was ended in an unusual, incomprehensible way. How could it? Is what I constantly asked myself. And this somehow reflected onto me as if it was going to happen to me one day. As a young child with so much optimism, with so much to live for, could randomly get older rapidly and die in just a matter of seconds. I wasn't prepared for this kind of shit.
I mean, I know in a lot of kid shows, or anything in general, the bad guy would always have to face the consequences for what wrongdoings they have done. But I didn't think it would be like this.
It was at that moment when I first saw it, it gave me some sort of sense of reality that I've never have gained before. This put so much pressure on me as a 9-year-old, and back then, I just couldn't handle it. It made me question the wonders of reality of some sort. I don't know. It made me think about how I was going to spend the rest of my life. I was asking a bunch of questions to myself that wouldn't really make sense to this extent, but that was how I reacted when I was a kid. And even looking back now, it still gives me shivers around me. I'm being serious. But anyway, let's just get this review over with. So it cuts back to present time, and as Peter finishes his story, the principal calls bullshit on him, but as Peter provides evidence to him, there is still no luck.
Glenda, get in here. You boys can start looking for a new school. You're all expelled.
But there aren't any other schools in Port Miranda, sir.
Really? Out. Glenda, take a letter to their parents. You know, Glenda, I wasn't always bald.
As they wait outside his office, the boys hear the device go off. They see the secretary has turned into a young woman, and as for the principal... Yeah, that's all funny and cute, but that still didn't help me from getting traumatized from before. Fucking scumbag. So that was the thing that absolutely fucking scared me as a kid. Now, I'm sure that there was more stuff out there that I watched and scared me as a kid, but I'm unable to talk about it in this video simply because I repressed it and I just can't remember it. Anyway, if you thought this stuff wasn't the least bit scary, then that's completely fine. That's sort of the whole point of this topic. We all have different opinions and feelings on the world we live in, that's just how it works. Our experiences differ amongst other people, which is why it's good to have some sort of discussion on a topic like this. In terms of the entertainment we consume, there is a vast amount of traumatizing things from what we watched. Young kids can watch this stuff that could potentially reflect on real life experiences that impact on them psychologically.
And not to mention that some kids really do like to get a kick out of this sort of stuff.
When hearing other people's experiences, it can make you remember some childhood memories from a long time ago that you repressed. And as for talking about these shows in this video from a perspective of a mature adult that hasn't seen this for a long time, it's fun to point out the flaws and weaknesses that shows like Around the Twist had, and it's still good to at least acknowledge that it gave me a sense of the world which I probably would have never have got if I hadn't seen this scene. Again, I want to thank Your Movie Sucks for giving me the inspiration for making this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you, I don't know, whenever I feel like it. I don't really have a consistent schedule.